And share screen. Here. Awesome. Cool. Hope everyone's getting ready for Java. Everyone enjoying Java just like a little bit? Somewhat? Kind of? Yeah, I see some heads up and down. I'll take that. Thank you, Sandy. You look like you're happy. Anybody else?
A little bit. It's not that bad. I was expecting a little worse.
Right? It's like your parents make you try broccoli and you're like, oh, it's not the worst. It's not the worst thing in the world.
I hate TypeScript, but it's not the worst.
Well, I feel like there are moments of, oh, that's really cool. So that makes up for a lot of the just sort of, it's a little plotting sometimes, but it's okay.
True.
It's not bad. I'm kind of enjoying it so far.
Okay, so we're going to continue our Java discussion here, and we're going to be talking today about control flow and collections. So, I don't know why that's up there. It should be there for today. So let's just dive into it. Before we get started with anything, I just have a few announcements. Double check I am recording this. Right? Yeah, I'm recording. Cool. First things first, there is a new exercise review out if anybody wants to check that out. If you did the exercises for chapter 3, the solution is out there now. Not really solution, but just kind of talking through how I approached it. Remember that there's multiple solutions to one problem in coding. So it's just the way I approached it. And then Studio as well as lecture will be available here after lecture. Moving on, I will have limited Slack access Friday to Sunday, all day Sunday and all day Friday. So if I don't reply to you, it's not that I hate you. It's just literally I do not have access to Slack. I am off the grid. So if you do have a question or it's something pressing, do feel free to Slack me. I just might take an extra few hours to get back to you, or extra few days. So just letting you all know that. Any questions, any throwouts there? All right. Quick. Okay. So before we dive into anything, people have been reaching out to me with questions, and I just kind of want to elaborate on some of them that I found really, really well. So again, if you guys do want to meet with me or just ask any questions, please do, because that means a lot of other people will have those questions, and I want to intertwine that into my lecture. So one of the things is that terminology can be very confusing. What do I mean when I say something? I say it so naturally because I've been working in it for some time. But to all of you, possibly, some of these words might be different, or we might have a different meaning for them, depending on what field we come from, whatever background we're from. So I'm just going to go over those real quick. And the first one is program or application. When I'm referring to the program or application, I am talking about the universe, everything that is encompassing our application or program, everything inside of our box. So what's inside that box? Inside of a program or application, the first thing we have in a Java application is a package or packages. The program or application wraps packages. The packages wrap classes. So our classes are within packages. Inside of classes, the first thing I refer to typically are the class variables. The class variables are just declared inside of the class. And the second thing that classes can contain are those methods. And inside methods, we have more variables. But these are just called variables. I'll just refer to them as variables, not class variables. So I'll leave this few moments open while I just keep yammering on here. If there's any terminology that I haven't included here, please just ask it on the questions channel. But this is exactly what I'm referring to and how everything really piles in on each other when we're talking about Java. All right, so if we're all good there, then we're gonna move on and pick up where we left off, which is declaring a variable in Java. My first question is, what would a variable named the season with the value winter look like? Who can tell me what that variable, how would we declare a variable to answer this question?
You'd start with string the season.
Very good. String the season, because we want to name our variable the season. Great, what else?
Equals winter in quotation.
Very good. So the season equals winter. And winter is in double quotes. Remember, strings need to be in double quotes. Awesome job. The second thing is, what would a variable named inches of snow with the value of 2 look like?
Inches of snow.
Inches of snow equal to
Equals 2.
Very good. Int or integer with a capital I, inches of snow equal to 2. Perfect, just like that. Looks like most of us, basically all of us remember how to create a variable. Awesome.
Good girl.
Yes, I want to lick this. I'm busy right now. Though.
So we're gonna move on from declaring a variable. Sandy, did you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have a dog that's crawling on me. I'm sorry
No, it's
about
okay.
that. I'll mute myself.
No worries, no worries. Cool, so we declared a variable, and now we're gonna create a program or an application. So let's hop into IntelliJ and introduce us or reintroduce us to IntelliJ. Hopefully everyone has IntelliJ installed by now. So on a Mac, and I think you can enable this on Windows too, but you get a welcome screen. Here, I said I'm gonna create a program. So what I'm gonna do is just click on New Project. Make sure when you're creating a new project on yourself, this is extremely important, to make sure that Java is selected, not JavaFX. Java must be selected, otherwise we're gonna have some weird issues. We click Next, Next again, and then I'm gonna call it My Example Project. And click Finish. IntelliJ is gonna think for a second. It's gonna mess up all of my screens, awesome. And there we go. We have just created an example project. And just wanna make sure that Zoom's not doing anything weird. Can everyone still see that screen?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Fantastic, then let's be on our way. This is our application or our program. What's the first thing we need to do to start our application or program? What do we need to create within it?
Package.
A package, very good. I'm gonna call it my first package. Now, we're one layer in now into our program, into the package layer. What do we need to do to keep trying to create this program, or at least a starting point? What do we need to create next?
Class.
Class, very good.
Java class.
I'm gonna call it my class, just because I'm just gonna call it my class. That's what I'm feeling. Uncreative today. All right, so now we're inside of a class. What are the 2 things we said go inside of classes?
Variables and methods.
Class
Very good.
variable.
Methods and constructors.
Also constructors. Constructor I claimed kind of as a method. It's a different kind of method, but I like that. Constructors also. Class variables, constructors, and methods. What's the one that we truly care about in Java that starts all of our applications?
Main method.
The main method. Awesome. So I'm going to say public static void main string args. And sometimes I can't type that fast that I do on my videos. Sometimes I can't. And then I'm going to declare those 2 variables that we just did. So string the season, it's winter. And then we had that int, inches of snow, equal to 2. Perfect, just like that. And now I'm going to system.out.println, because that's how we print to the terminal now. And I'm going to print hello world. To run our application for the first time, we need to make sure we click this green arrow. If you ever ask yourself, what's the difference between these 2 green arrows? Honestly, nothing. Both will give you the same effect. We see that hello world is printed. So Coco, I see that you were asking, what's the difference between static and dynamic in relation to data types and the relation to primitive and non-primitive attributes? I like that. That was a very awesome sounding question. It makes me feel like a nerd now answer that. Okay, so static and dynamic in relation to data types. Static doesn't have necessarily any hold over any kind of data type, any kind of method. Static is telling us as a developer, as well as the compiler, how to treat that data type or that variable or that method. Static indicates that if we created my class here with a static class variable, say public static my test variable, whatever, we'll just call it test. Oh, I'm doing Java right now, string. So he's just created this my test variable. I know I created a public class method. Don't hold that against me. I'm just doing this for an example. I know typically we have to do it as private, so always keeping that in mind. So when I create a new Java class, call it second class. If I was to create a method in here, like public void method, and I want to call to my class. We'll learn this more in chapter 4, but I'm going to go over just very, very briefly. We'll do var for variable, new class, my class. So if I do var.myTest variable, I see that IntelliJ is doing this, but I get a red underline. Because I created an instance of my class, but I get a red underline now. This is because my test variable is static. I'm not accessing it in the correct way. To access a static variable, you have to call directly to the class, not the instance, because static variables and static methods exist on the class. They do not exist on the instance. So we say my test variable. So dynamic versus static methods, well, okay, yeah, so static versus other variables simply just mean, static means that it does not exist on the instance. We have to call to those static variables or those static methods directly from the class, not from an instance. Oh, stop. There, now you'll stop complaining. So we call to that my test variable directly from the class. That's the difference. Static means we have to call it from that way. I know sometimes it might still seem kind of weird why we do that, but I promise as we move forward, especially in the classes, it'll become more apparent to why we do these some ways and some ways we don't. Does every class within packages need the main line? Bree, I think you got that. Yeah, thank you, Bree. If anyone else didn't see that reply, no, we do not need the main in every single class. One main can call to 100 methods or 100 classes if they wanted to. We just need one starting point. You can have as many classes as you want, but we always just need at least one starting point. So one of those classes has to at least have the main method in it.
What happens if you put 2 or more?
That means you just have 2 starting points. You basically just have 2 different ways to enter into your application. So you just have 2 doors at your house.
How do you know which class to put the main line in?
I like all these questions because we're getting into next week. But I will give a quick little answer to that, is that I personally like to create a class called main or program that I put my starting point in. And that's all it is. I want to create my starting point in one area, one class, and that's all that class is for. You'll see that me doing that sometimes, especially as we move forward, that I'll always put my starting point in a class by itself, and that's all that's in there. We're putting main right now in the other classes just for examples as we move forward. And I'm sorry if you guys can hear that background noise. St. Louis is burning down again. So it does it like 3 times a day, I swear. The beauty of living next to a fire department. Did Alexa T, did that answer your questions?
Sort of, but I'm patient until next week.
Okay. All right. I didn't sell it to you. So if you want to rephrase the question to me, I'll definitely try to do it again.
I'm mostly just getting questions in my head about, like, is this a substitution for the file tree structure that we used in Angular, whereas like all the classes are in the same file and it's just looking for the one that says main? And my next question was, how does it know which main to start with? Like, I guess you have to physically go in and click run, but I'm thinking about how it would be applied to like a web app or something like that.
Even in the web app's going to ask you, what start will I run from? Everyone, everywhere, no matter who's using your Java program, whether it be another program or an individual, will ask you, which main should I start from? we have to know the starting point. So that's definitely determined by the program or by the person that's using your application.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. Again, as we move forward, it'll become more apparent, but that's my answer right now, and I'm holding to it.
Are we going to have one main only in one package?
In the future, there will be programs that only need one main. Yes, because we do larger, more complex programs as we progress.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. Okay, so we started off our main here, and now we're just gonna hop back. And we're gonna get a little bit more complex. Last week, we just created methods, we did variables, and we did classes. We just got our feet wet with that. But let's take it one step further. We're going to start off just like we did in JavaScript, allowing our program to make decisions, make choices. So in order to do that, we'll bring in the example from what we were talking about previously, the season and inches of snow. And then can someone tell me, if inches of snow equals 1, then print school is canceled. If we were given this task, what tool would we use to complete it, to help our code make decisions?
Else statement.
Condition.
Conditional.
Conditionals, if statements. Yeah, I'm hearing everything in the right thing. So yeah, we're going to look at the statement says if inches of snow equals to 1. So that tells me we need to make a if statement with a conditional inside of it. So we say if inches of snow equals 2. We only use 2 equal signs in Java, unlike JavaScript where we use 3. And then it says print out school is canceled. So we just do a system out print line school is canceled. However, in St. Louis, if there's like 0.5 inches of snow, that's when we get school canceled. That's why I love living here. So unfortunately not now, because I guess everything's virtual. Whatever, I'm on a rant. So looking at this conditional, we see that we have those double equal signs. So let's take a closer look at that. These are called our comparison operators. In Java, we're going to be dealing with 6 common ones. That first one is that double equals, which is just equals. Looking at an example, if we have a and b, which are both int variables that are 2, is a equal to b? Anybody?
Yes.
Exactly, true. Then we have the not equals. A not equal to b. This is how it would look in the conditional. That would be
False.
false. Then we have the greater than operator. Is a greater than b?
False.
It's going to be false. It's not. 2 is not greater than 2. 2 is 2. Greater than or equal to. Is a
True.
greater than or equal to b? True. Awesome. And then the less than or equal to.
False.
And?
True.
True.
True. True.
Very good. So in the end, this is how our comparison operators work, especially with 2 numbers that are exactly the same.
So Kyle,
Yeah.
the equal, is that like the absolute equal from Java, or that doesn't exist? I mean, JavaScript, or that doesn't exist in Java? The absolute equal.
The absolute equal technically does not exist in that kind of context. We'll talk about what that double equals means and how we kind of do different kind of comparisons in Java here in just a second. So hold on to that question. It's a very good one.
Okay.
So real quick, yeah, absolutely. So real quick, we're gonna just go over here and just make sure I'm not crazy. We're just implement that if statement we just saw. So if inches of snow equals 2, and we system.out.println. What did I say? School is canceled. And I'm putting an exclamation point there because that deserves an exclamation point. Run. Oh, where's my mouse? There you are. Comment that out because I don't want hello world in there. Run it. It takes forever to run. There we go. And school is canceled. Also, while I'm in here, if anyone sees this exit code 0 thing and wondering what the heck is that, did I do something wrong? Exit code 0 is the best thing to see when you're a developer. Nerd speak, exit 0 means nothing was wrong as I ran this application. If we returned anything but 0, what our computer would see is something went wrong here. You did a no-no. Let's talk about it. So seeing exit code 0 is actually a really good thing to see. So if you see this, just know that your application went swimmingly. So don't worry about it. So exit code 0 just means everything went A-okay, and it's talking to the computer to tell it that. All right, let's go back. That's our final example. We implemented that. But let's talk about something even more weird. If the season is winter, then print out winter is here. Anybody? Game of Thrones? Anybody a Game of Thrones fan? Yeah, exactly. I saw a smile, Alexa. All right, so we're going to do an if statement here. If the season is winter, can someone tell me what this if statement would look like?
If
Repeat the question, please.
With this expression, if the season is winter, knowing that this is what our ask is asking of us, what would this if statement, the conditional inside of it, look like?
If parentheses string, what was it? String season equals winter, and then you have
in Java, we actually, with strings and with other classes, we use dot equals.
Yeah, that's right.
If we had the equal operator.
The biggest thing here is that string is a class. With classes, we use dot equals. It says then print out winter is here. So we say winter is here, Jon Snow. So the season dot equals is how we do that comparator. So we're looking at this equals thing. What is it? What does it want? Why is it here? And what does it provide to us? So let's take in that season once more. Looking at the season dot equals, let me go make sure I'm not missing anybody's question here. Oh, I am so sorry, Jamie and Kim. I missed your questions. Thank you, Bree, for taking that one. Isn't true and false case sensitive in Java? When you're assigning a Boolean, yes, it is going to be case sensitive. You're going to use the lowercase form of true and the lowercase form of false. So coming back here to the season dot equals winter, the way we do this one is comparing what's inside of the string. It's comparing the value. Is winter equal to winter? So why can we not use the double equals? I'm sorry, this one returns true. So why can't we use the double equals? This is because we're comparing this season and the winter's references. We're comparing their memory addresses. Now, this is a new one. And also when we compare these, we would get back false in this instance, in this case. So what exactly are we talking about when we talk about references? This is from our reading from last week, but we haven't really talked about it too much. So let's talk about references just very, very briefly, aka memory addresses. The best way to picture what a reference is that picture a neighborhood. Inside of this neighborhood is just whatever, as many houses as your computer allows in your computer neighborhood. Taking that exact same example, string the season equals winter, when we declare this in our Java application, immediately that means someone has just moved into our neighborhood and has provided an address. That address pertains exactly to that value. So when we did the example, the season equals winter, when we do that quotes winter, that means someone new just moved into our neighborhood. So we're comparing two different households, aka the address 1 and 2. When we compare these two, this is false. Hence, using those double equals as a comparator between two classes like strings won't work. So going back to a previous question we heard, and I didn't see whose name that was who asked the question, but is there an absolute comparator? And like I said, not exactly, but there's two different types of comparators. There's these double equals that compare the references, the addresses, and the dot equals that compares the values. Both will be necessary to compare our classes going into the future. So that's why we should really know these dot equals and what the difference is between that and the double equals. Just to make sure we have everything down there, let's do one more quick example of references. Everyone remember the area class that we had to do in our studio? So we did that area equals new area. The second you did that, an area moved into the neighborhood. It was assigned an address. So everything inside that area class was provided an address that is saved in our memory neighborhood. So if we assigned a different area, we created a completely new instance of the area class, it'd be stored in a different household. Every time we create a new instance of a class, it's stored somewhere different. It's provided a different house in our application inside of our computer. So hopefully I've officially confused everybody now.
If we're declaring a primitive value, does it take up a space in memory in the same way that declaring a class would?
Do you say primitive?
Yes.
That's a great question. I knew I should have included that slide because I knew I was going to get that question. But if you have have to go with me and picture it in your head. If you have the primitive, if you have an int, you have an int A and an int B like we saw in that previous example that I had, and they're both equal to 2. Primitives point to the same exact memory address of that value. So if I have an int of A and an int of B, both equal to 7, it will point to the same house because they're primitives. That's kind of the weird thing about primitives. That's why we can use those double equals.
Okay.
So primitives, if they're the same value and the same type, they'll point to the same memory location.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
In your example here, Kyle,
yes.
Then area is an object? Is that, I mean,
That's
a class?
correct. Yes, area 1 and area 2 are both instances of the area class.
Okay.
Or objects. Instance, yeah, go ahead.
And winter is also, because it's a string, it becomes an object. Winter is the value, the elements of an object.
Very good, yes, because remember, string is a non-primitive. Technically, it's a class that wraps a bunch of different characters. Which characters? The char is the primitive.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great questions. Anybody else?
When I did the exercise, I didn't create an area class. I just created the variable for area. So is area like a built-in class in Java, or is that something that you created?
I believe one of the studios you had to create the area class, or you can also refer to the circle class.
Circle, okay.
Yeah, either one. I forgot which one it was exactly. Sorry, I was going off memory when I created this example. But you could also have created an instance of the area class because the area is a class inside that example as well. But yeah, I apologize for any confusion there, but it's just like the circle. If you use that new and then the class name, you create that instance. Awesome. Great questions, everybody. Anybody else? Sure didn't miss anything. All right. So going back here, let's go ahead and implement it real quick. Again, to show you I'm not crazy, what I'm going to do is just print out the, and say if the season equals winter, and system.out.println, winter is here. If we did this, and of course I'm going to comment out our past example, we would run this, wait forever to terminate. Oh God, why did you have to do this to me right now? Why are you doing references right now? What was that? Then Sometimes it'll still point to the same memory thing. Don't trust what you see all the time. I promise I'm not crazy. Let's see, there you go, season 1, season 2. Season and
I think if we have another variable that is equal to winter, it would not be equal.
also true, very, yeah.
The
correct.
variable, it's gonna be equal for sure, I think.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right too. If you have another, again, the variable has to be a non-primitive type or a class, but yes, you're absolutely correct.
Then if we do this season equal winter and the season 2 equal winter, and we try to compare them, they're not gonna point to the same address, right?
Very good, exactly. Season 1 and the season and the season 2 are both set to winter here as their value.
Yeah.
We compare them, but we don't see winter is here being printed out in our terminal.
It's not.
Therefore, the references are different.
Okay.
However, if we do a dot equals equals the season 2, we run this, then we see winter is here because we're comparing those values instead. So let's go back. All right, any other questions about this? All right. Then let's move on. So we're talking about conditionals, making choices. The next thing that we need to talk about is the switch case. Again, we're going to use the season variable. It's going to be set to winter. And now we're going to create our switch case. Can anyone tell me how we begin creating a switch case?
Switch condition.
Very good. We need to use the switch keyword. And then we put in the conditional. Whatever we want to check against different cases. In this case, I'm going to be checking the season. So this is how we begin it. Then when we create our switch case with those open and closed curly brackets, we need to supply cases. So to do that, we say case, then in quotes, what string we want to compare it to. So in this case, we're comparing the season to whatever value it might be to that new case, which is declaring string. It's comparing the season to spring. We create that case by using the case keyword. And then we always make sure that we put the colon at the end. That's the biggest thing. Make sure our colons are always there. And then we supply the code, whatever and how much code you want inside of this case. Granted, in standard, you typically want to keep as little code as possible in your switch case, but place as much as you want there in your own programs. And then to tell it you're done providing code, you put that break. The break is extremely important. Remember to place your breaks in your switch case. Otherwise, you're going to see some weird things happen. Then within the switch case, we can make as many cases as we want. In this case, sorry about the same use of words. In this one, we're using the case winter. So we're going to try to compare winter to the season. If that is equal, then this code will run. And then we break. Then finally, if no matches are found, aka if our season is not spring or winter, we provide a default case, which we use the keyword default. That default basically is anything else that isn't found in those cases, just give it to me and I'll do what I want to do. So it's kind of like a none of the above kind of option in the switch case. And then it does its code base as much as it wants. And so this is the switch case. Any questions about the switch case?
Do you actually use switch cases in the real world?
What was that?
Do you use switch cases in the real world?
Absolutely. If I need to compare against like 8 different things, even the seasons, 4 different things, that means if I did if statements, I'd have to write 4 different if statements. But with the switch case, we only have to write one switch case and it does everything we want for it. And that's a really good, yeah, go ahead.
The textbook made it sound as if else was desirable and the switch case was weird and not
Yeah, it did. I was gonna say
Yeah, it
something.
did.
About that.
Was it? Okay. Technically, if else's can be desirable. Switch cases can be desirable in different cases. I cannot say either way, which way, because the book said if else, but I was taught an else way. So I'm going to say, yes, absolutely. The book is right. Go if else. Switch case, we're just going to tell you about it because it's cool. But the trade-offs are somewhat minimal. We know that if statements, if you book those if else's, it's doing the exact same thing as a switch case. The switch case might take up less space, so that might make it more desirable as well. So it's more, it's less space intensive, but it could also be or it could make runtime a little bit more laggy. It could increase your runtime, which means make your application longer. So good question. If the book says go if else statement, definitely go if else statement. But it is good to know about the switch cases and their trade-offs. So I do like ifs better just because it's just more concise. But good question.
Could you show us though how you would make one switch case to compare?
Absolutely.
Like, things?
Yes. Like I said, if we come in here and we ask the season, is it winter? Say winter is here. If we did an else if, we do the season dot equals springtime. We say system.out.println, it's spring. And then what would I do? It would be like 2 more else statements. Like that. Summer, fall. Did I do that in order? Kind of. A little weird, but whatever. Spring, summer, and then fall. So this is an if else statement. We've seen these before in JavaScript as well. We do the if statement and then the if or else if statement. So these can be chained on with each other. If we wanted just anything here, we just put the else statement, meaning this is again a catch-all and none of the above option. We would say system.out.println. This is not a season. So remember that else at the very end is that catch-all. Anything else, hop into this one. So let's translate this if statement that we're looking at real quick into a switch case. How would we do that? Or how we would do that is we'd start with what keyword again?
Switch.
Switch, very good. And we provide what inside of here?
The season.
The season, the conditional or the thing we want to check, which can be any data type. We can do integers if we want. We can do strings, chars. We just have to make sure that case is in that specific format. So we're going to say winter. And then we say system.out.println. Why am I doing that here? I'll say it a million times. Programmers are the laziest people. I copy and paste all day. Spring. It's spring. So we do that case. While I'm typing all this out too, call out to Bree. He gave me this awesome IntelliJ tool called Presenter. I don't know if some of your TAs already did it. I had no idea about it, but if you look at the bottom when I'm doing things fast, it tells you what like shortcuts I'm doing. So thank you, Bree, for that. All right, almost done. Let's fall. So that's the last one right there. Oh, it's false. That's not correct. Fall. There we go. A break. And then, of course, what's the last thing? What is our catch-all in the switch case? What did we just go over?
Default.
Default. Awesome. Say, this is not a season. There we go. This switch case is exactly how we see above it.
How come you don't need a break for default?
Because it's our last case, meaning that we don't need to tell it when it ends. But if you want to, we can always add that break. So we'll go by case. So we'll put that break in there just for good formatting. So good call out. You don't always have to have it, but it's good practice just to put break in after every single case. So I'll go ahead and do that here. to tell you why to put breaks in here, and they're so important, is that if I don't put a break in here, what's going to happen is that it's going to go into this case. It's not going to see a break, so it's immediately go to the next case until it sees a break. It won't jump out of the switch case until it sees a break. So if I don't have that break there, it's going to execute both winter and spring, and we don't want that. That's why break is so important, to tell it when to stop running our code. So that is that translation. Andre, any questions about that? You wanted to see the switch case, so anything more in depth you want to get?
No, it looks pretty simple.
Cool, cool.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and run it. We should see winter is here twice. Perfect. Because we are running it up here as well as down here. Okay, so yeah, so why don't you need a break after default? Cool, cool. If true in switch case example, it prints. So could you explain this a little bit more? If true in switch case example, it prints it is cold and the default?
When I was doing the lesson, I saw one of the lessons about cadet or you it was some type of astronaut example, and it printed I am not a cadet, but it printed the default too. I had to answer either yes or no. I was like, no. So I couldn't understand why was it printing the default.
But was it also printing something under one of your cases?
Was it the alien one? Like,
yes, yes.
Yeah, I think it printed like everything that the case satisfied or something. So it printed the one before it and the default.
Yeah, and that confused me. So that's why I was asking it.
I think it might have been missing break.
Missing a break.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
that's the question was.
So exactly. So if I don't put break here, just to show you this example, what's going to happen is that it's going to keep running because it hasn't hit a break. So it won't exit my switch case. So now I get winter is here and it's spring because it didn't see a break inside of this case. So it jumps to the next one. If I take out this break, now I'm going to get winter is here, it's spring, and it's summer.
Okay. Oh, so you have more control over the, oh, I got you.
Exactly, because if I wanted to say more like, say these two cases, say winter and spring are my favorite seasons for whatever reason, I can say case that and that, my favorite seasons. And then I put a break here. So now I run it, and now if spring or winter is assigned to the season, my favorite seasons get printed out. So it gives you more control. It gives you flexibility and customization to this switch case. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense.
That actually answered my question. Thanks.
Cool. Is that a fall through? Kind of, Danny, it's like you fall through to the cases until it sees a break. You just keep falling down the switch case till you finally get either default or you get a break. That's what the switch case is doing. All right, so let's move on. Oh, okay, I had one more thing in here. There you go. That one will get executed, as we all know now. Cool. So let's hop back to loops. Who's ready for loops? Anybody miss loops?
Nope.
Really miss them? No? Well, we're getting back into them. So let's start with our old trusty, the for loop. Now in Java or in JavaScript back in those days, we had let I equal 0 to start with it, and then everything else. Well, luckily, the only thing that's changing is that let. We're changing let to int. This right here is how we create for loops. We want to make sure we use the primitive int in our for loops. That's a big thing too. Don't use the capital I one, use the lowercase I. Sorry, is someone asking a question? Okay, so we want to use the lowercase I. So if we wanted to, so we use int. So if we wanted to print out all of the seasons inside of this array that we're initializing up here in seasons, we'd system.out.println seasons with that I inside of it. This will print out spring, summer, fall, and winter to separate lines on our terminal. Don't believe me? Let's go ahead and just do it real quick. I'm gonna comment out all of this. There we go. So we did string seasons equals spring. Summer, and then cool. We do for int lowercase I equals 0, I less than seasons dot length I plus plus, and then we do system dot out dot println seasons with the I in there. Sweet. Go ahead and run this again. And there we go. Print out everything to the screen just like that. Fantastic. Any questions about loops? Cool. On to the next one. We're going to stick with the for, but now we're going to call the for each loop. This one looks a lot like we did back in JavaScript as well. But this one, we're going to be using that colon there. So we do the string seasons, and then we're going to loop through that season by calling that variable we just created directly. So that one do for string seasons. Oh, come on, you can spell seasons. System.out.println season. And we run that one. By my mouse, there we go. Run, and we see we get back exactly the same thing. We get all those seasons printed out on individual lines. Now, the question you might be asking yourself though is, okay, we have two loops, but when do we use which one? Like, you didn't tell me anything about that. And also, it's kind of the most confusing thing about these loops. Like, both of them kind of sound like they do the same thing. They loop through things. But they do two primarily different, they loop through things in two different ways. The first one, the for each, we loop through those individual values. So when we want to get individual values out of an array, or maybe one of our other data structures in the future, we use that for each to get the value out of it. So if I want to get those seasons out of the array, awesome, I'll get them out of the array. That's not a problem. The for loop is there if you want to modify the array. You use the for loop if you want to change the array in some way. If I want to just set all of our seasons to summer because I want to live in LA for whatever reason, all I do is that I modify that array in the for loop. This won't work in the for each loop. So these are the two primary differences between for and the for each loop. Any questions about that? Okie dokie.
Kyle,
Yeah,
can
what's
you
up?
repeat the why we use for loop? I'm still
For sure.
still not clear.
So if we want to just get the values, if we want to receive the values, just take them in and print them out to the screen, print them out to the user, things like that. Just get them and do nothing with them. Then we use the for each loop. When we don't want to change the array at all, the for each loop.
Okay.
If we want to change the array in some way, or we want to change its individual values, that's when we use the for loop, when we want to modify the array.
So in your example, season index equals summer, assigned summer. Are you saying we can change that to, I don't know, something, a different string? Is that how
No.
we change? Is that how we modify the array? No, right? That's your.
So array, whenever, go ahead, keep going.
How would we modify that for loop, that array for the for loop?
So you want to modify the array inside of the for loop?
Well, yes, for the for each, you said just want to print the value. We just want those values to be printed. And for the for loop, you said we want to modify the array. How would you modify that array?
Absolutely. Let's take a look
I
at
was
it.
wondering the same thing because it'd be easier to modify an array of numbers than an array of strings. So
Let's take this existing for loop we had with the seasons. And we'll do the
Uh-huh.
exact example we saw on there. I said seasons I equals summer. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to console log system out.println. Seasons. Come on. Yeah, okay. I should know that. We see now that we are modifying each individual index of our seasons array to all say summer.
Okay.
So ask me questions. Tell me how you feel about this, because this can be a little tricky.
Why would we want to do that?
Do you convert? You have to convert like one to the other to be able to modify it, and then use methods kind of like how we've done in JavaScript?
To do what exactly?
Like sort or something, or changing things to uppercase or lowercase, like dot notation or method chaining.
Are you talking about reassigning in the array, or are you asking why we would ever want to do this?
I'm asking if that is a way to modify it.
Yeah, absolutely. If, say, instead of this, we wanted to say, I want all my seasons in uppercase. I'll say season of that to uppercase, and then run that. And now I have us yelling at us winter, spring, summer, and fall.
Then it looks like we just need the index if we want to modify something inside an array, but we can't use the other one if we want to change something in the array, but we can still use it if we want just to get the value from it.
Exactly. Oh, you can still access the array directly. So if I want to just print out seasons at index 0, you absolutely can. We're just talking about which array or what for loop to use if you want to modify the array by looping through it. And there will be cases you will want to do that. And when they come around, you want to make sure that you use a for loop when you want to modify the array in any capacity. Did that answer your question, or was I going on a different tangent?
No, it answered my question. Thank you. I had them mixed up. I thought the for loop, the second one, what is it?
The for each?
For each, yeah. I thought that was modifying the array, but that's not, it's the other one that's modifying the array.
Exactly.
The one
Yep,
that's going through each index.
Very good. Yes, we need to call to that index in order to modify the array. Awesome.
Yes.
Any other questions about that?
So in that for each example, is there something that just prevents us from saying something along the line of season equals summer?
For sure. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, the seasons, we're modifying it here in this. You run that. And we see that nothing changes. It's because we're using those references again. We're trying to modify a different reference here inside of the array. We're going back to those references and those houses and the addresses. That's why we can't use the for each, is because when we create the string season, we're creating a new house that season lives in. Winter's in a different house than where the array lives. Hence, we can't use this for each because it's calling to a different reference when we're posting winter or the value out there.
So like if we are using integers array, can we do modify for each loop?
That's a good question. You know what? Oh gosh. Okay. Good question. I should have looked that one up. Right. Let's do 1 and 2. Let's do that. Let's see. That's a good question. For array events. See if that might be different.
I will say no because it's still gonna reference to another address.
Right. Anybody else want to make a call on it? What is it going to be? 1 and 2. So there we go. It's settled. We absolutely cannot modify the array inside of the for each loop. I like all these questions. That actually that taught me something too, because I was like, you're right. That's a little bit of a conundrum if we're using primitives here. So I'm gonna double check that. So good question. Anything else?
I have a question regarding line 56. It's here we have like to print array dot toString. So what this method do to arrays?
For sure. So if we just printed it out like we saw previously, if I just print out seasons, system.out.println, and I say seasons, what's going to happen is that, again, it's one of our topics today, it's going to print out the reference to seasons. We get back this weird looking thing here. This is just saying what the reference to the object, aka the array of seasons, is. So what this does is that it is a helper method called arrays, and it converts our array to a string, something that's human readable. And prints out those seasons to the screen so we can actually see what's inside of that array. Does that help out a little bit?
Yes, I kind of get it. It's kind of extracting that value. I think that's inside that season.
Yeah, it's extracting that data and kind of making it into a more fun way to read an array, an easier way to read an array. Because the thing that we have highlighted here does not make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. And we're gonna move on to the conditional loops just briefly. We have while loops and the do while loops. So let's go through that over here. So a while loop, we start with what keyword?
While.
Very good. So what I'm going to do is say while days of winter is not equal to 0, then we're going to keep looping. What a while loop does is that as this conditional is true, the while loop will never stop. So days of winter, as long as it's not ever changed, we'll keep this while looping going, literally until your computer fries or shuts down or runs out of battery. This while loop will keep looping forever. So in order for it to stop, we're going to say days of winter equals days of winter minus 1. We could also have said days of winter minus minus as well. So we do this, and now we're going to system.out.println days of winter. So what this should print is what? What should our days of winter when it comes out to our screen be? Anyone tell me?
0.
Very good, 0. Let's double check that. Comment about that, and it's 0. Awesome. So
yeah,
that
is another way of breaking the loop, isn't it?
Say that again.
-1 is another way of breaking the loop, I think, because it's not seeing anything, so it jumps out of it.
That could be, well, so in our while loop, our conditional says that run as long as it's not 0. So every time it runs, what is it going to do, Andre?
Every time it runs, it's gonna look at the days of winter. The days of winter is -1, so it's not gonna see it.
So actually what this means is days of winter -1. So we're going to decrement days of winter by 1.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, my screen's also kind of might be small too on your screen. So that's what it means. It's that days of winter -1. So what we're going to do is subtract days of winter by 1 and then reassign it to days of winter. So it's going to be 99, then 98, 97, etc. until we reach 0. When we reach 0, it's going to come up here and check, is days of winter not equal to 0? 0 is not equal to 0. That's false. 0 is equal to 0. So it's going to break out of this while loop and hence print 0 to our screen.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's, yeah, to everybody too. That's exactly how our while loop is happening. So let's talk about the
question.
Yeah, please.
I'm just, maybe I'm just not getting it, but I'm a little confused why I didn't print like 99 all the way down and only printed when it was false instead of all the ways it was like satisfying the condition.
For sure. And that's because we didn't include the system.out.println inside of the loop's scope. Scope is defined by these little curly brackets. It's telling us our beginning and ending of our loop. We see that this bracket lines up with this one. So if we included a system.out.println loop number, and we plus days of winter, we do this, now we're going to get some fun things in our terminal. We're going to get a loop number all the way back, all the way from 100, or 99, I guess, 99 down to 0. And then it prints out 0 at the very end. So it's because we didn't include that system.out.println inside of the scope is why it didn't print that. Very good question.
If you did a do while loop, would it have printed 100 and then decrement it?
Close, but I like where your head's at. Yes, you're definitely on to what a do while does. And let's hop on to do whiles real quick. A do while is different from a while loop because it is guaranteed to at least execute one time. It's going to do and then check. So we're going to say days of winter here, not equal to 0. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did up here. But remember, at the very top, we had 99, and then we ended on 0. That's how this was. And I'm going to take that exact example there, paste it in here, and then take this out. Of course, comment out our past while loop. And now let's loop through it. Okay, because it's still going to show 0. What I'm talking about. Let's see if we can do this something different. Let's do that. Oh yeah, there we go. So what I'm going to do is change days of winter to 0. In this while loop, if we uncommented that out and we did a system.print, I'm going to call it wrong loop. So if this loop executes, we should see wrong loop inside of our terminal. So days of winter does not equal 0. That means if days of winter is 0, this while loop should not run. Days of winter does not equal 0, and we put that in our do while conditional. So do we feel like we should see anything print out to our terminal or not print out to our terminal? What are we feeling?
The first one will, second will not.
Okay, anybody else? We'll write in first one here and second.
The first one won't and the second one will?
All right, sounds like we have competing theories. Let's run it. Oh, might be. And if anyone wants to know what happens when you have an infinite loop, that's what it is.
I think when
it tries to fry.
The day
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Second one. The second one will run. If anyone's asking why did I get an infinite loop, is because we actually decremented 0 by 1, so now it is a -1, which is not equal to 0. So we consistently looped until we got negative numbers to like 41,000 or something like that. That's how fast our computer's running. But to answer the question, the second one will run is because we hit this while loop. It was equal to 0, therefore this while loop doesn't run. But we come down to the second loop, the do while, and we see the keyword do. Do means run this portion and then check my conditional. That's the big difference between these two.
Can you try it where the do while doesn't equal 0? So it's like true right now because, oh no, never mind. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Come up with another question, just let me know. Okay. So that is our whiles and do whiles. So let's hop back here. So we're going to go now into collections. Kind of what we're talking about. One of the collections we're already familiar with, very much acquainted with, is the array. So in here, we're declaring an array of ints. What this would look like in our computer is that we have 0 through 10. One thing I want to point out real quick is that if you see this triple dot, which sometimes I'll put in some of my mockups, it just means etc. Just pretend that 6 through 9, those boxes are there. That's what this triple dots means. I was always confused about that when people were teaching me, so just sharing that information. So just a quick thing, if we assign the third index to 27, that means 27 goes into the third index. Shouldn't be anything new. We see this in previous examples. Any questions about this?
Not to be this person, but wouldn't it go in the 2 spot?
Yeah, I thought it was 0 oriented or something.
It is, and so is the mockup. If we look below, we see that 0 is there under our box here. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I put 0 here, 27 would be in the 0th index.
Sorry.
Should we stop?
Yeah,
at
no, it's
9?
okay. I know in some examples, some people do 1 oriented and some people do 0 oriented. In this one, we're all 0 oriented because you're talking to a super nerd. So
okay.
Cool.
Shouldn't we stop at 9?
Oh, touche. Okay, brownie points. Yeah, well played. So this should be, yeah, you're right. So that should definitely be 9. Oh, wow. I'm so embarrassed I'm doing that right now.
Okay, that will
JK.
make us
Guys, it
feel
was always 9.
we can make it, you know.
Yeah, forgive me. No, it was always 9. It was always 9. I wouldn't make such a mistake. I'm just kidding. I make those mistakes all the time. All right, 27, put 27 there. Any final questions? Who do I owe Emo's Pizza to? Who called me after that?
That
Not
might
emos.
be a punishment depending on who it was.
Right? All right, let's move on. So we're familiar with array list, but do we know its close cousin, the array list? Or, oh, I said that wrong. Oh, well. This is how, we've already seen array lists in some of our practices, but this is how we would define an array list of integers, aka our favorite numbers. So this is how we would create it in code. If we wanted to add to an array list, well, let's back up here. What even is an array list? An array list is a kind of like an array, but it grows and shrinks depending on its necessity. An array is set to a specific number, 10 in our last example. That means 10 spots will always be there, no matter if I have 1 object or 10 objects. I can't ever have 11. With array lists, we again grow or shrink depending on how much we need. So if we have 11 objects, that's fine. We can put in 11 integers there. If we only have 1, we can only have 1, but it shrinks down to 1 or it grows to 11. So let's see how this works. When we want to add to an array list, we have to use the .add method. And inside of that add method, we put whatever object or data type we want to include in it. I made an array list of integers, so therefore I put 7. When we put 7, favorite numbers is already created, and it creates this little spot at the 0th index for 7. Same with 13. It adds 13 in there at the first index, not 1th, first index. Same with 27. We put in 27 there. Now this interesting thing happens. What happens if we remove the first index, aka we're going to remove 1, which has the value of 13, out of the array list? Well, what happens is that it removes 13 and replaces it with 21 or 27 in the first index. So that's how it does that shrinking action in an array list. So any questions about this?
I have a question. Why is it that favorite numbers dot add 7 refers to the integer you want to add into the array, but favorite numbers dot remove 1 refers to the index?
So what if I added 2 7s into my favorite numbers array list? It would be very hard to tell exactly what index do I want to remove it at. Index 1, where the 7 is, or the other index where 7's at. That's why we want to include the index, the specific area in our array list that we want to remove. Hence why removes takes in that more specific granular thing that it wants to remove.
Sounds good, thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's kind of that's the same question I have, and I'm not sure I really understand it yet, because when you did add 7, it added the value 7 to position to index 0 and 13 to index 1. It kept value, but when you did remove 1, I would think it would be a value also, but it actually is not. It's referring to the position. Why
in this, right, in this case, because I'm providing an integer, it refers to the index. So we have to take a close look at our parameters. IntelliJ will help us with this. When you call to the dot remove, it will tell you, I want an index, not the object you want to remove. So keep very close eye on what these methods, these helper methods, truly want, or else you'll get different results than you expect. Very good questions. Anything else?
Okay. So would you say that in Java, an array is immutable and an array list is mutable? Or no?
I'd say the array, the size is immutable,
Size is
unchangeable, and the array list size is mutable, changeable. The sizes is what differs in these two types of data structures. So I'd slightly rephrase that, but you're in the right line of thinking there. So remember, the sizes can differ between array lists. It can grow and shrink, while the array just stays consistent to whatever we set it as. All right, so just for sake of time, real quick, we're gonna go over the next collection, the hash map. The hash map might look like something that we've seen previously. If we define a hash map called favorite numbers, which string and integer, what are those? String is in the key spot. Key, just like objects. What we saw from the objects have key value pairs. Hash maps need keys and values to store in their hash map, aka key value pairs as well. So it's a lot like objects, how they work. I'm going to refer to a string as my key. That's the data type of my key, and an integer as the data type of my value. So let's take a look at this. If I have this favorite numbers array, or a favorite numbers hash map, and I say favorite numbers dot put, that's how we put something into a hash map, is that dot put. I have to provide the data type of string, which I'm going to provide my name, Kyle, comma 7, which is the data type integer. What this does is that it sets it in the hash map, Kyle equals 7. If I put another person, Sarah, with her favorite number 27, it puts it into the map as well. Now say I change my favorite number. I say put Kyle in there in 33. Remember, just like in objects, hash maps, keys have to stay unique. There can only be one key in a hash map that's named the same. So therefore, this value would be updated to 33. And that, my friends, is hash maps. And Finn, take a breath. Relax.
I love
How's our-
Java.
What was that?
I love JavaScript.
Oh, don't let Java hear that. Oh no, Java and JavaScript definitely have their differences, but I promise sometimes Java has its shiny moments. You'll find them soon, hopefully. Remember, it's only your second class. Give it more time.
Hey,
But I understand why you miss it. Yeah, Matt, what's up?
Hey, real quick, with the hash maps, is it always gonna be two data type string or an integer for a string, or can it be like a string and a string, or say like a string and a double, or a double?
Yeah. All of that. You can put whatever you want, any kind of data type you want inside the key, and any kind of data type you want in the value.
Okay.
Yep. Anything you want to create this hash map like, perfectly fine. Yeah, very good question. What else you guys got for me?
To go over accessing information in hash maps.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and do that. Really briefly, hash map. And in this one we'll say integer. Oh my gosh, come on, integer string. My map. New hash map. There we go. My map. I'm gonna put variables in there. Put 1. Hello. Then one more thing. My map dot put 2, and then another thing. So we put it in there. If I want to get something from it, I say my map dot get. We need to supply a key. We need to unlock the value out of our hash map. In that case, I put 1. That will return back to me my string hello. So if I system print out this, you run that. Oh gosh, you're gonna run the whole loop thing, aren't you? Yeah. We get back hello. So to access values inside of a hash map, we use the .get. And then inside of those parameters, we have to supply what key we want to get back.
So just quick question. So it's not the index, it's the actual key. It's looking for the, so well, I guess it is, because otherwise the index would have been 0, right? Never mind.
Well, okay, yeah, I guess that would, there's strings in here now. Thing 1, 2. Now I have to supply the key. The key, again, is whatever in this first thing. So I'd have to say thing 1. Run that. We get back hello. We do not use indexes with hash maps. We use keys. Keys are the only way to unlock our value. Indexes do not. So hash maps are unique in that way, that we use only keys to get our values.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, very, very good question.
I had a quick question.
Yeah,
If I wanted to modify the value of an item inside of an array list, just to make sure I understand, so would I need to then convert it to an array in order to change that value?
No, you can absolutely do it just in the array list. Real quick, I wanted to also point this out if we had time, so now that I have time, if you want to, just like how we initialize arrays, we can initialize array lists by using the arrays.asList method. And then we can put something in here. I'm gonna say dog and cat. So that is a big thing, arrays.asList. This will help you initialize your array list much faster than doing it line by line. If you want to, did you say you want to modify or add to it, or what was the thing, Amber?
Yeah, so not to like add another item in, but like if I wanted to change dog to Pomeranian, let's say.
Okay, so in that case, we know dog's gonna be at the 0th index here. So we'd say arrays dot, oh gosh, what is it? Set And I'd say at index 0, I want it to become now a puppy. And I system that out. And that one, my list. There we go. And now we modified puppy. So you'd want to use the method called set.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a rando question?
Go ahead.
So when I was doing the exercises in studios, the IDE gave me a little light bulb like you have next to line 91. And when I clicked on the light bulb, it said, it offered to clean up the code. And I was like, what's that mean? So I clicked on it and it got rid of the semicolons at the ends of my lines. What is up with that? Do we not need semicolons in Java?
I would have to see exactly what setting that is. That is, no, you absolutely need semicolons at the end of your
It
lines.
deleted the semicolons and then I ran it and it ran and I was like, what is going on?
It might have hidden them. It might not have removed them. So if you want, I'd say ask your TA to check in the settings or we can definitely schedule time, but it might be hiding that. If it says clean up the code, I can also show you right here that if I don't put a semicolon there, expected semicolon. So semicolons are absolutely critical to Java. But good question, absolutely, yeah. Just to reaffirm, unlike JavaScript, semicolons are definitely necessary. Any other last minute questions? Because we are at time.
Can you touch on looping through a hash map really quick?
Really quickly, yep, absolutely. So for, if we want to loop through it, we could use the for each, which we want to do string in the key. Then we do that, and we do mymap.keyset. This will allow us to get every single key out of our hash map. When we do that, we now have access to all of our values. So what I can do is I can do system.out.println. I can say my key that I want to have is for, and then colon, plus, and now I say mymap.get the key. This is how we would access, we would loop through all of the values inside of our hash map. So we have to get the keys. Remember, the only way to unlock things out of our hash map is with those keys. So now we see thing 1 is for hello, and thing 2 is for another thing. And as we see up here, that's correct. So in a very quick way, this is how we loop through that. Sorry, I couldn't get into much detail, but feel free to reach out to me with any questions. So I want to give you guys as much time as possible in the studio. All right. With that being said, everybody, I'm going to end it here. At about 8:30, the new studio video will be available if anyone wants to go over their solution. As always, if anyone has any questions, feel free to stay on. I'll stay on here for a little bit longer. But I think that is it for me tonight. So thank you, everybody. You guys are doing awesome. Thank you so much for all the participation. Everyone's asking great questions. Good luck in the studio tonight. And yeah, have a fantastic weekend. Everyone deserves it.
Thank you,
Bye,
Kyle.
you too.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you.